Right, so, hello everyone. I'd imagine most of you are going to watch this as a repeat, as an on-demand, because you're not in our chat at the minute. So, I'm going to cover, well, between Aaron and I, we're going to cover some introductions to shooting interviews, probably very much aimed specifically at you journos at the minute. So, we'll come in, we'll talk about how to frame, how to lay out your shot, how to have a look at it, a little bit on lighting, and then also just a quick way to approach it, how you ask your questions ready for your edit. It won't be long. I'm going to try and focus it up and just rewatch it a few times if there's bits you want to go over. So if we're all happy and ready to go, I think Aaron's going to come in, Joel's going to move this over to our nice split screen, and I'm going to sit in this chair. Ooh, that's a lovely shot on me. I'm going to sit down immediately then. So, over to you, Aaron.
Okay, so we've cut, brilliant. Hopefully you can hear me, Joel, and it sounds good. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to frame the shot. So as you can see here, we have a terrible frame. It's dark, we don't know what we're looking at, there's a little bit of mess, and we've got our subject in the hot seat ready to talk.
I feel like there's an avant-garde privacy interview going on.
Yes.
Well, of course, when they did the thing, I didn't want to be known.
So first things first is I'm just going to frame it a little bit better. It can get tweaked a little bit down the line, might need to lift it higher, but let's just see what we get firstly. Okay, so what we want is to imagine, and if you could put a fist above your head, Lawrence, and we've got a tiny bit of gap between Lawrence's head and the edge of the frame, and the way we like to think of it is using a fist or an apple or something like that to kind of give it a nice amount of space. So I'm going to leave that for now. I'm just going to bring it just slightly across because I want a little bit of space following where Lawrence's voice and giving a bit of breadth on the rest of the shot.
Not to put a cat amongst the pigeons, but would you raise the tripod?
I'll get to that.
Oh, okay, that's fine then.
So now we've kind of got a frame that's kind of working. I'm going to sort my exposure out first. So there's a couple of ways we can do it. You can't see the menu on the screen at the moment, but I'm going to change the ISO.
I'm going to very quickly do this so you can get a zoom from this side.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to zoom in so that we can see what's going on over here.
Thank you.
Up that there. And I'm going to bring it in properly tight.
Yeah, really close.
There
yeah.
we go.
Brilliant.
I think that should be all right.
Yeah, decent. Cool. So, thank you, Lawrence, for that. So, what I'm going to do is change the ISO. So, at the moment, we are on the lowest setting, and we can go into the menus and set the parameter of each low, medium, and high setting. So, it's on low at the moment, which is 320 ISO. And I'm just going to bring that down one, and that takes me to 800 ISO, which is a step towards what we're after. However, just kind of want to show you for the exercise purposes, we can go to something much brighter, which is 1250. Now, this is why I'm going to show you two different ways, because I'm going to let light in another way, because my aperture is at 9 at the moment, which is quite high. So I'm going to stop that down in terms of ISO, and I'm going to bring it down one more, and then I'm going to adjust my aperture instead. And what I'm going to do by adjusting my aperture to something lower in value is actually blur the backgrounds more and give me that kind of nice depth of field. So if I up my ISO to let more light in, sure, it will make it brighter, but it doesn't give you any creative effects like aperture does. So now I've done that, I'm going to quickly tweak the focus and find where Lawrence is. And there we go. So what I'm thinking there is my exposure is good, so I'm at 320 ISO, and I'm at aperture 4 to give me a nice blurred background. So now I just want to tweak the shot a little bit, so I'm going to raise the camera and maybe make it more of a mid shot and get rid of Lawrence's knees there.
But I like my knees. Don't get rid of them, Aaron. I'll pay. Just give me more time to find the money. I'm going to pull this out just so we can see you moving that shot up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
There we go.
Yeah.
So you've just unlocked those legs.
I've just unlocked the bottom legs. It's up to you how you want to do it. You can unlock the top ones, but I like to work bottom up. And we only need to go a smidge up, so I'm just going to go to about here, and we can see kind of just make sure that goes down.
Careful of that HDMI
Indeed, there we go. So, as you can see, I'm just getting the top of the chair there, which is the area I'm kind of after, and then I will lock it off just there and there. Then I will I will tweak the balance as well. So there's somewhat of a better shot. And then lastly, I need to check the balance. You won't be able to see this, unfortunately, because it's underneath the camera. I don't know if I can.
You can see
do you
on
reckon
this
we
shot
can
where that ball is?
Let
You
me,
can see.
move that around?
Can you point to where it will
It's
swivel
just
from?
here,
Yeah,
and
that-
it's a spirit level sort of meter with the bubble. You won't really be able to see it, but underneath is I grab this, so I'm just going to bring it back round to our chair and level it off. So I'm going to undo it. Look at my spirit level meter bubble thingy. Pop it in the middle of the circle, tighten it off, and now we have a nice leveled shot of the top of the chair. Now if Lawrence could go and sit for me in the chair, we will see how we're looking.
Of course.
There we go. So I think we can even go tighter there. So I can zoom in, and then I can get that nice sort of top shot of Lawrence. And go maybe further in if I want. And this is where it kind of gets down to taste. So you can do a wider shot if you want originally, or you can have something a little bit more sort of mid and shoulders. So I'm just going to double check my focus there. Go across. There we go. And that's the focus done. So if Lawrence, you could look at me.
Yes.
So, now he's sat up, we need to tweak the shots. I'd say the shot needs to go a tad higher. So I'm just going to finalise that a little bit. There we go. It's very important to get the framing right, even if there's slight adjustments, because it'll affect the overall quality of the shot. There we go. So, bring that down a little bit, a bit more space on the head, and we'll go. So if Lawrence, if you stop looking at the camera and then look at me, and there we go. So if you look at Lawrence's eye line there, he's looking across the shot. Because we framed him on the right-hand side and he's talking to me, the interviewer, on the left-hand side, it cuts across the frame and gives you a nice bit of depth. It would look a little bit strange I'll go on the right-hand side just to show you the difference. So if Lawrence, if you start talking to me now.
Well, of course, I'm now talking about the thing that I've been asked about.
So now it looks like he's kind of talking to somebody offset behind the scenes. It's not the kind of shot you want for an interview, and it's not as intimate in terms of what you're trying to produce. However, if I go back to my original spot, and if I stand up, by the way, now Lawrence, look at me. So we see how eye line will greatly affect the different type of shot. So that's why I'm on my knees, or I could get a chair and I'd speak to Lawrence and ask my questions. So it's important to consider that and think about where the eye line's going to be. And it should be kind of straight across the middle of the frame. And that's kind of what we've achieved here. Lawrence, do you want to jump in with any tips here at all?
The thing that I'll say that Aaron did sort of mention, but I think it's worth remembering, is when you're choosing those different frame sizes. So right now I can see that Aaron's got me sort of like a mid about this high. When you pull that back out, what you'll see is the space above my head will move proportionately to how much you zoom out. So if you want to go for a wider frame, that's great. But you've got to remember this space here. Am I about right on that line? I don't know. I can't see. Oh, I'm a little off. There you go, about that much. That there needs to roughly stay the same. And that's what's going to happen. Because if you pull out and you give too much space above, it can be very jarring. You know, but you can change it. When you change your frame, I'm just saying keep this proportional. You know, you want to keep that roughly the same height.
It's also stylistically, so if you don't want as Lawrence was talking directly into the lens there, that was to address you directly in regards to what we're talking about here. But realistically, he would look at me now. However, if Lawrence, you could straighten up your chair for me, that's it, and then we can go for something a little bit, in a way, maybe more personal. It gives you a more sort of a look into what they're talking about in terms of direct contact. And it may be more applicable to something that you're producing maybe in second or third year when you're doing your documentaries and you're getting pieces to camera of experiences or something like that. You would pick something a little bit more like this, and you remove the element of eye line in terms of an interviewer. So they would be talking in the first person straight down to the lens. Lawrence, anything you wanted to jump
Well,
in
I was
on
going
that?
to say, you can also remember this is the same is applicable for your news pieces. When you're putting together packages and you're speaking to camera as the reporter, you will want to speak in this way, and you'll want to keep this framing correct, and it allows you to engage. And as Aaron was saying, there are plenty of documentaries. I can think of many on Channel 4. It became quite a running trend with them, that when they had people speaking on it, they weren't being interviewed in the traditional style that we're explaining. They would be done like this. It's not applicable for everything though. For most interviews, you will want this straight across, where you're talking to somebody, because they create two different types of feeling. One is a complete conversation. One is your viewer is a participant, a silent participant in the conversation. It's about the level of intensity that goes with. You know, sometimes you will want someone speaking to you. I want a reporter to speak to me because they are telling me something. But if I'm watching an interview, I will usually want to see it from the side most of the time. I'd say probably easily 80–90% of the time, because I want to hear their story in a second-hand basis almost. I'm having someone who's knowledgeable interviewing, and I'm gleaning information from the side. It's the ways that we frame these things help us interpret how our audience should experience it.
I just want to do, for the sake of the exercise, if you could then face as if I was going to be interviewing you from and we'll try and get a different type of shot. So we've got the right-hand side framing, we've got the middle framing. I'm actually really going to try punch right into Lawrence here and then get something a little bit. This is I might need to just raise the tripod just a tad, just to make it a little cleaner.
As you can see, Aaron's doing that from the top there, that fine adjustment. And it's mostly because you can see where his hands are close to it there. I'm giving you an interview type thing there, and you can see you're receiving this information first hand, second hand. You can see where he's dealing with that from the top if you look onto the side there. And it's just easier. And remember, you might sometimes have to do this. If you have someone interviewing and you have someone operating, which in some ways is the perfect way to be, you'll find that the operator, if you are operating, will need to be quick reflexes, because you can't, well, I'll explain in a minute, you will struggle to go again for an interview. You will struggle to capture something again. So when you've got that opportunity to make that change, you need to make that change there and then. I'm now looking at you, Aaron, so you can say your piece.
So this is just another example of a frame shot. Again, it's a little bit more intimate, and you can get the kind of facial expressions a lot more. And it's more just stylistically. So there's three different approaches we've had here. And it's not to say one's better than the other, but what we would normally do is maybe have this kind of framing on a B cam or something like that. So before we had the mid, and then you'd have this camera just off to the left a little bit, and just getting something a little bit more tighter that you can cut to. And also it'll clean up some audio cuts if they maybe mess up their dialogue. You've got the B cam to jump to that gives you a bit extra to save what you're trying to produce, really.
Well, I will explain in a minute how to spoof some of that with one camera. Because the likelihood is you'll go out with one camera. Unless you're doing really well and you want to try and juggle two, well, that's complicated.
This is also known as a talking head because we've got nothing else of Lawrence. He's essentially a puppet here. He's just got his talking head framed, so also known as maybe a vox pop here.
And if you're a camera operator and you're in this shot and someone cries, resist the urge to zoom in. Most conventional wisdom will tell you that you zoom in, you get the tears. If you zoom out, it's sadder. Because what happens is because you'll see, I mean, if you just pull this out, pull out this shot, just go wide, just immediately. How far does it go back? Can you see that I'm on my own? If someone cries and you're in one of those tight shots, you pull back to this, you'll make someone seem really small and vulnerable. Now, a lot of people tell you to zoom in, but that's why you don't zoom in. Because, imagine you've got someone there talking about, this terrible experience they had, and they start crying in the close-up, and you pull out to a frame like this. You've put them on their own, and it's a much more vulnerable place to be in. It's something that most people would tell you to zoom in, but I 100% believe that 9 times out of 10 you want to zoom out.
I also want to talk about decluttering the set. As you can see here, I kind of want to try and let's film something a bit wider, a bit more centered. Let's get you facing the camera,
do you want me to do it
Lawrence,
for these
yeah,
two
and then
cameras?
we'll do sort of a wider sort of, there we go, something a bit like this.
This sort of thing, when you do a wide like this with someone sat in, is very good for you have a quote-unquote expert in something.
Yeah.
I can speak authoritatively on a subject, and this is where this starts, because not only can we clear this up and make it look nicer, we can start to choose what we'll have in the frame. That's why I left the area there. I thought it might be nice.
Oh, we'll leave the area in?
No, I was going to say, I was going to put that area in.
Okie dokes.
So what we can do is we can take the shot and we can design it a bit better. So we've taken that sandbag out, it didn't look very nice. But if we put a light in place, you suddenly see that we're choosing how we decorate the environment. There's nothing wrong with that. You're contextualizing the person who's talking. So if we tidy away that, and we tidy up our bags that we've brought and the black screen, sometimes you don't even need to place it anywhere particular. You could just, some of that stuff could be hidden behind me and you'd never know. You know.
And then we could wheel round a camera maybe, but they're in use.
Yeah, well, they are in use. That's why I kept the light out. You can always bring the light further and straight. You could always turn it on as well.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe doing that, but we got the extension leading here.
I'm running it off of there, but yeah, that should be fine.
Oh, we've lost a shot.
We have lost the output from this camera if the battery died.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Joel, could you go and run us an MPF? Thank you. I'm gone. I'm just a disembodied voice to you now. When it comes back, though, I'll have the most amazing looking shot. Bonjour. Is there? Oh, brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Oh, you diamond. If you could swap it over and just pop the other one on charge as well, that'd be great.
This is going to be tough.
I like this.
Reached.
You pop the release button on top, there you go. Oh, it just came back live. I didn't know you changed it.
Interesting.
That's...
There you go. Oh. No?
Yeah, no, that was live for a sec. No, well, it might be. Go grab another one real quick, just to make sure. I was going to say leave it in, because it might come live again, but... So Aaron's currently putting that set together. He's decorating the background. When this camera comes live again, which shouldn't be too long, what you'll see is that we've made a lot of decisions about how we're going to address that set. Now remember, that's always thematic to the person who is speaking, because the reverse can happen. You have to remember that some of these things, people will come in halfway through, they'll come in, you know, sort of not really paying attention. They weren't really paying attention for the first 3 minutes, and they go, oh yeah, I'm watching the news. Like, what's this about? And so part of that is we give visual clues to sort of help identify what's going on. You know, if you're taking somebody who's speaking about local housing prices, you get an estate agent, and you're interviewing them based on something current, like how difficult it is for people to buy houses. Oh, let's go incredibly current. Let's age this completely. So Rishi Sunak's budget's come out, and he's talking about having 5% mortgages. So we get an estate agent to come in, and we're going to ask him questions about, actually, is that going to help? Where do you place them? Do you take them outside? Do you interview them in their office? Do you put them in a pub? You know, if you put them in the pub, what's going to happen? Nothing particularly helpful. You know, you're not going to look at that situation. See, there we go. Doesn't that look nice? You can move that light in a bit. Oh, okay.
I was going to go just a, maybe a tad wider, just to sort of... But it can go so many ways. You've got the light on the side of your face.
Yeah.
You could go in a bit.
But do you see what I'm saying? So let's assume I'm going to talk about something I'm even remotely knowledgeable about, and I'm going to talk about film, say, and perhaps I'm going to talk about the growth of the film industry as we see it over the next 10 years. So I am some quote-unquote expert, let's assume I'm a producer or something. Suddenly, placing this light in frame gives it the look, you go like, oh, well that's one of those film lights. I don't know anything about film, but that's one of them film lights, isn't it? I've seen that image before, perhaps in pop culture. You know, I'm on a green screen, so perhaps I'm in a studio sometime. Green screen, that's something to do with films. You've got these different elements. Now, if I was, once again, you know, you pick somewhere easy, like, because someone might say to you, oh, well, I'll meet you at 1 p.m. and we can meet at, I don't know, the George Arms, and we'll talk there. Sure, you can do that, and you'll be happy to hear that, but see if you can get them to come with you somewhere. If they're talking about the local area, find somewhere very close by that's a prominent landmark, and film them in front of that. You know, say we're going to Banbury. Banbury has Banbury Cross. Most people know that, you know, it's in a nursery rhyme. If you're in Brighton, you know, you can go down the pier side, say, and people know what that looks like. That's part of something for them. If we go back to our estate agent idea, put them on a street and find a sold sign in that street or a rent sign, something like that, that balances out what you're talking about. You know, imagine that my lower third is going to turn up here and it will say, you know, Lawrence Mabry, you know, producer director or whatever, you know, and I'll sit here and I'll say, well, you know, you have to understand. But I'll talk for quite a while. And that's where we come into our next bit, which is about how do we work with our interviewee to make sure that our job is easier on the other end, especially when you're doing some of this in a day. What do you want to add, Aaron? Because you've
No, I was going to say about leading questions and the answers. So it's a good point. So asking a question and making it more conversational, making it more relaxed, and making it less seem like a list of questions you get through and more of a conversation, but you still get it in the right way you need for the edit.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about some of that now, because we're doing not too bad for time. We're about half hour in, and we've covered a lot of. We've looked like, you know, I look all right. Aaron's done the best he can with what he's got. And so I've come in and I'm ready to be questioned. I'm sat down. If we might have had a chat before, we might have spoke about some stuff, but I don't necessarily know what you're going to say. The first thing you really need someone to do is on screen is set it recording, set it going and say, oh, hey, great. So for the first thing you can do, could you just say your name and what it is you do? Really useful. You might need that later on. And so I'll be like, okay, hi. So I'm Lawrence Mabry. I'm a director and producer, and I work within local film industry. Do you see what I mean? Like that, you know, it's just a nice, useful, small thing that you can use later on. If you don't use it, it doesn't matter. It's just there. And also, if you need to pass that footage on to someone else, they immediately know who that person is, even though they've not necessarily spoke to them.
Also, you could hit record while the seat's empty when the person goes to sit in it for something to cut to. So if you want to maybe demonstrate that, Lawrence. So you're getting ready, you haven't gone through anything, but as a cam-op, you've hit record.
Do you want me to sit here? Okay, yeah. You know, I'll put a coffee down or something.
And that is something more natural that you could use as maybe an intro, as a bit of B-roll, or maybe even as a thumbnail.
You know, and perhaps that'll be cut over your voiceover where you say, well, we spoke to someone from the local film industry to talk about this. So now you can see we've got context of me sitting down, being in place. You know, it might cut straight into me saying something like, yeah, I just don't see how it's going to work. That I probably didn't say for another 10 minutes. You know, you start out with that first question, which is, you know, which, as you know, you guys are working through it now. It needs to be simple. It needs to be like, so how do you feel about this, you know, the future of the film industry locally going forward? And you ask the question and I'll do the response that we all know that we don't want.
Hi Lawrence, how do you feel about Northampton's film industry going forward?
Well, it's just one of those things really, isn't it? You get that, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting.
Sorry, could you say the question and then say your
answer? Oh
yeah,
sorry, of course. Don't be afraid to do that, because what you want to hear is, well, the local film industry has had a tumultuous time, but I'd say we've really got a promising area going forward. And I don't really know where it's going to go, but I do know that what's going to happen is going to be something that's really, really interesting.
Sorry, can we do that second bit again and tell us what is actually going to happen? What's going on in Northampton?
The other thing about that is some people, the patterns they think in they will think between a word. It's a nightmare. Because when you come to edit what I just said, as Aaron said, just get it again. Because I'll have said things that I don't finish the sentence, I put large pauses in the sentence where really there needs to be something. So what you want is that conciseness. And I'll go, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, let me just, do you mind if I take a minute just to get my thoughts together on it? So you're still probably rolling at this point, so I might say something in this bit that's really useful. So really I probably wanted to talk about, you know, and I find this quite helpful, where you say to somebody, if they're struggling with what to say, you go, so what is it you want to say without worrying about it? Because they'll usually now at this point go, I suppose I just want to say that the local film industry is really improving, and I just feel that there's a lot of backing that's going behind it now, and there's a lot of scope for it in the future. Is that all right? Yeah, that's all right, because you've got it. It's done. But for their own personal benefit, you go, okay, sure, and you're going to ask that question again.
I was also going to add sound levels as well.
Yes, yeah.
So we've obviously skipped a little bit as if we're going straight into interview questions, but one that normally sets people at ease and normally actually quite throws them off is, what do you have for breakfast today? And they think, it's a little bit of a personal kind of question, but in a way, it breaks the ice in a way, and you're able to just listen to them talk about their ready bread and do your levels.
Well, it'll be that type of thing where someone goes, oh, is it bad I say that I haven't had anything yet? And you go like, yeah, because it's one. And that puts people at ease. You can have a laugh and you can have a giggle, and it's fine. But it's obviously, you're starting to get very dependent on what your subject is. We're talking about something very, very dry, well, something that's a little bit, it's casual, you know. What's the state of the film industry? Well, it's an important thing, you know, because in my case, I consider it my career as this person who's being interviewed. But you might be dealing with something that's a bit more hard-hitting. So when you talk to someone, you want to be very mindful of the entire thing, you know. You want to bring a level of, like, relaxed atmosphere, because especially if someone needs to open up about something that's complicated, you want to be able to sit there and go, so, you know, just I need to get some sound levels. So, you know, how was your drive over? How was your, what was your breakfast like? You know, if you're working with something bigger, like they put you up in a hotel, how was it? Was it all right? And they'll go, yeah, you know, it was pretty good. And that gives you that opportunity. Like Aaron says, you want to ask something innocuous to talk about that you're using for a technical thing, but it can be a really useful tool for, you'd want to edit this, it can be a really useful tool for how you set yourself up going forward.
I've got a question. I've got something that I want to demonstrate. If you could do this for me as well. This is yours, right?
No, that's Joel's.
This is yours.
This one's mine.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got the jacket thing.
Would you mind popping that on for me and gesticulating?
I find that so hard to do, gesticulate.
Right.
I tend to have my arms by the side. Well, it's a very, very complicated situation. You've got a lot of different things that are going on.
I'm really sorry, we're here in your jacket. Would you mind taking it off for me?
Oh yeah, sure, of course, no worries. Should I just put it on the chair, or do
no,
I?
It's in shot. I'll take it for you,
Go,
actually.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's all right.
There you go, thank
Cheers.
you. 9 times out of 10 what will happen. But if you get nervous to ask people, you'll come back with something ruined.
Yeah.
You will come back with something, and these are simple little things. One of the things people struggle with, and I think Aaron will agree on this, is the first time round is confidence. You can get quite afraid because you feel that you owe the person because they've agreed to come and talk to you, and you know, and I don't really want to. I don't want to make much fuss because they've been very nice to me. I don't know. I mean, that's how I felt to begin with, but it pays nobody if you come back with something rubbish.
There was actually an interview from, I think, the Northampton stand-in manager, and I think he was holding some keys to like the locker rooms or something, and all he was doing was flinging the keys in the audio, and you think, you just need to ask that person. The same with jewellery. You know, jewellery can hit tables if you're in an office environment doing an interview. Don't be scared to ask them to take it off or put the keys down.
Yeah. Also being wary of people's time as well. You know, you'll want to make sure you're covering your stuff. So let's assume that we've got our first thing, and I've answered this question. I'm like, yeah. So I really feel that, you know, local film industry is just ready to boom. Really got some great opportunities coming forward. Well, where do you go from there? well, I think, Aaron and I might agree on this. So say, you go like, oh, that's great to hear. So what kind of opportunities do you feel like there are going forwards? Where are opportunities for people? And once again, I'll come back with the answer. Well, I think some of the stuff that's going on would be, and the answer is, so could you just mention opportunities when you say it, just so if I cut it in, people know what's going on about? Because you might have gone, well, the first bit's nice, but actually I might want to talk about it later because he says something really good about opportunities. And so I start saying, well, the opportunities in the local area have expanded really thanks to certain organisations starting, certain locations opening up. We've got some really great areas in Northamptonshire that just look so picturesque, and I think they've really been forgotten in the film industry.
Yes, I would add on to that as well. Try and get your subject to finish on a point or a concise point rather than think about the next thing or elaborating too much, because at the end of the day you want to come away with sound bites.
Yeah.
So you don't really want an elongated piece that's, where they're drawing out words into the next thought. So just try and keep it concise if you can as well.
And you're listening, you're hearing, you're going, oh, that's one. That's one. And if you're not hearing them in your head, because even those ones you hear in your head, you might get there later and go, it's not all that. But if you're not hearing anything which you think is usable, there is nothing usable. And remember, you film 3 times as much as you will use. So even if you're recording, you're looking for a 5-second sound bite, you're going to be filming 3 minutes before you get to there, because you've got 3 questions. You're going to be going for ages and ages. Sometimes we're recording up to 10 times what we need to get what we want. But you can't make a sculpture this big out of a piece of rock that big. You need a far bigger one to work away at and to get down to. And that's what we do when we're making anything video related, anything that's in this filmed form, is we have to go out and get as much raw material to sculpt something in the edit.
I'd like to also add that, say Lawrence is looking at me and the entire interview is, like we said before, across the lens and the eye line is across the lens. However, something that can accentuate what you're trying to put across can be put straight down the camera. It's also a call to arms, so to speak. So the whole interview questions is done like this, and then you frame it centered, and Lawrence looks directly down the lens and says, visit screen, whoever now, and this is me. They do it on, what's that show? Oh, It's Your Moment, and they say, look at the camera. I think it's Graham Norton. And they go, right, look at the camera and sell what you're trying to do. So it's a call to arms away from the standard sort of, across lens shot. So it's just styles for different accentuations.
That's perfect for if you're talking something charity-wise, like someone's saying, well, you have to understand that we have so many stray dogs coming to us at this time of year. Christmas is really hard on people, people get their pets for Christmas, and also January is so difficult, so it's a bit of a double whammy, and that's when at the end of your package it cuts that thing of going if you really could, we really do implore people to just contact their local shelters if they're struggling, or if you feel like you can take on the dog, and you really can care for it, we'd love for you to really give us some time. Just thank you. Oh my God, round out your package with that and everyone will be like, it's beautiful. It's just these considered little beats and notes, and the trick with camera craft, and it is camera craft, it's a real craft, is understanding that you're dealing with someone's point of view. You're choosing what people look at, and they have a tacit agreement that when they're watching it, they're going, right, show me something. Where's the best place for me to see this from? What's the best thing I need to hear from this person? You as a reporter have investigated and you have collated and you've gone down the wrong avenues and you've gone down the right avenues and you've uncovered the things that people don't know. And now you're laying it out in a visual format so that in a minute and a half, I know what you've learned. And that means that you have to do so much work and film so many things to find out what that means. And it's the same if we were dealing with media, it's the same if we were doing documentary, it's the same if we were doing even light entertainment. You're taking the wheat from the chaff to get the true point across.
I'd like to add now, as we've covered quite a lot of the kind of main A-roll, we can talk about getting B-roll and leaving your subject in the chair and just running around them and getting hand movements close up getting the feet maybe moving around slightly, focus pulling from the light. So I'm going to take this off the tripod and just do a little bit of movement.
I was going to say, one of the other
Yeah.
ones we can do is the set it up from a distance and you and I are talking out of focus thing.
Ah, yes.
These are traditional news ones. A lot of the ones Aaron likes are very, I wouldn't say corporatey, I'd say very light entertainment-y as well.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but these news ones are the ones that when you're trying to fulfill a style brief, specifically something like the BBC or Channel 4, these are the things that will make you go, oh, that's the BBC or Channel 4. You know, like the out of focus. But the point for them, and the point of this B-roll, and the point of this these shots, is it allows you to have images to go over where you've cut. And that's important, because otherwise you've got this interview where I'm talking over here, and then I say, oh, and there's this thing, and you go like, well, everything you said after that was just drivel. It's just completely useless. You just went on and on and on about
their phone went
cameras.
off.
Oh yeah, phone went off.
Something like, you know.
Seeing as my phone literally did just go off. So, you know what I mean? There's going to be these things you'll need to cut out, or you want something nice to lay over the top so that it just transitions seamlessly visually. You didn't even notice. There's another one we need to talk about as well. But you and DB, right? I was going to say we need to talk about the noddy.
Oh, yes.
Once again, a little cliche by this point, but incredibly useful is the noddy shot. But do you want to do your B-roll?
Yeah, sure. It's a little bit funny with the wires, but I'll give me a sec. See how much movement I can actually do around all this. This might be a bit difficult, but we'll see how we get on.
These are a lot easier if you've got a presenter and a it's happy. This is happy.
It's just the wiring.
Yeah.
So, you can go on the side.
You know, these are a lot easier if you've got a presenter, because I'll be talking to somebody. I'll start saying things like, well, of course, you know, this is how it is, and I don't know, I'm trying to speak expertly on something, and I can't think of anything. So, you know, let's say, say I was a stand-up comedian, like, well, the local stand-up scene, it's a pretty big deal, you know, and we really are expanding, and it's getting quite close to being something it's going national, you know, people are really impressed by it. Now, especially if you have these out-of-focus shots, these out-of-focus shots are perfect, because I'm saying something, unless you can lip read, you can't even lip read it. So I could be saying anything, and you could layer it over the top, and you've got something that sort of works out there. You know, and there's these sideways shots, and you know, it might be like, I have a laugh, I'm like, yeah, I guess that's what it is, yeah. You know, and there's a lot of different things like this.
I won't go into too many, but there's just a couple examples of shots there from just run around the subject and find different angles, hands, feet, lights,
If
focus
you're in a
pulls.
house, it's perfect if you focus on something in the front. Back to what we were talking about, contextualising your interview. You're in someone's house, it's a nice little old lady, and she's talking about how she's been burgled 3 times. You know, there might be a broken cup or something on the table. Oh, just imagine if you've got that broken cup in the shot like there, and it's big, it's like this big, and you can see it, and it's focused on that, and she's in the background talking. And you'd be like, oh, award-winning. Just people be, and you can speak in your voiceover about this woman's shattered dreams. Oh, you know, I'm blah 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 blah. Back to the studio. You know, it's these little things that how we understand this medium. I showed you guys, I think, last week. Well, those of you who are watching. I showed you the Thames TV stuff and the old packages. And the style hasn't changed. The style hasn't changed in 50 years. And there's a reason for that. It's not that it's like comfortable, it's just the fact that it's the most efficient way of transmitting that information in a film form. You have who, what, when, where, why, how, always what we do. And then you illustrate it visually. You reinforce it visually. It's always with this visual reinforcement. This image here, that image here. Does it illustrate the point? Does it mean that somebody at any point could come in and understand it? And that's the important bit. what would we like to look at next?
Do we
I
want
think?
to look at lights? Just setting up a key light at least. You know, just basic setup of a light.
Yeah, Joel. I can't see you at the window. I have no idea where you've gone.
Yeah.
Still there? Wonderful. I'm assuming we haven't had any questions. Of course not. Would you like to bump the room light to about half for me, if not a quarter? Keep going. Way down. I want it dark.
Yeah.
Dark. Is that about a quarter? No, I'd keep it darker.
There.
I'd get it really dark. It's in
just-
that A, we've
yeah.
got the perfect, like, you're going to put the voice modulator on, I'm going to be like, I fear for my life every day. That's really sad to say. I'm so afraid that they might find out who I am. But, I mean, you're going to walk into places and they're going to be like, this dark. And that's completely unusable. Like, if you turn up with this, you know, there's no point, you know. So, as you can see, Aaron on that second camera is putting up a lighting stand. And we've got all these panels, we've got all these lights. Remember, all of this is kit you're using. The camera you're looking at right now is your basic Newsday camera. It can look absolutely fantastic. I think this looks really nice. I think even this shot looks quite nice.
Yeah, it does.
You know, if you came back with this because you had private, you know, you were like, oh, the person didn't want to be seen on camera, but they, you know, they're a whistleblower for something. I'd look at that shot and I'd be like, oh my word. Give them an award now. It's beautiful. And it's brave to do as well, you know. A lot of these things, once you learn how to light, you'll get down a road of making sure everything's very cleanly lit. But it's just because it's news doesn't mean it can't look really wonderful. I'd chuck a sandbag on it,
Indeed.
yeah. I'm not a fan of those lights though.
Nope.
You know, this is a battery-powered light, so you can take it anywhere. The battery will pop on it will probably last for 4 hours. Please don't shoot 4 hours worth of footage if you've got to turn a video around in a day. You know, please do shoot 4 hours worth of footage if you're doing your final documentary, because you'll have the most amazing documentary probably by the end of it. Now, this light's going to go on, and hopefully Aaron would warn me, but he didn't. That looked quite nice, actually. You can see that light's very, very, what I'd refer to as hot. I'm quite overexposed. Makes me look quite pale. It's a very hard light, which doesn't do my aged face any favours.
It looks better on this screen, that monitor. It's not
That
really
monitor
adjusted.
isn't very nice, no.
Yeah.
But you can see that's powerful. But that looks really nice. I think if you were saying that you had a dramatic, if you had a very dramatic interview to do, and I was talking about something, I was like, yeah, the three guys came in and they're armed. They said put all the money in the bag, so I did, because I'm not stupid. That sounds terrible, like people who stand up to robbers a bad idea. I have no great opinion on that.
I just want to talk a little bit more colour balance here. We've got the yellow tungsten in the back, so ideally I need this fluorescent and white just to offset the colour, and it gives it a bit more, like Lawrence was saying, a bit more dramatic, rather than just white back and then this. If I turn this up too warm anyway, you see how it doesn't work the same.
That's quite yellowy. The
Yeah.
LEDs come out with their warm light is very yellow. So if you balance that towards colder, it can be nice. But if you dial in majority cold and just a little bit of warm, oh, that's still quite cold. Oh, maybe that was my idea out the window.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I think it's better the other way.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. There was a spot there where it was slightly warmer on me, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't.
That's better.
It wasn't yellow. That's nice. See, that brings warmth to it. But if you are talking about something quite dark, or you want to reenact, or someone's talking about like themselves being robbed, you can go very cold with the light. Like, I was gonna say you could go colder, like properly turn it blue, because that looks really nice.
Like that?
Dial it back a bit. I say there, yeah. Like, that gives me a very cold tone, and it's quite, yeah, it was scary. I can't sleep now. Like, if that was all warm, you'd be like, oh, bless him. If it's quite cold, you're like, ooh.
I just want to turn off that backlight just to show them as well.
Yeah.
Because what we're getting right now is definition, 3D definition of Lawrence's head, and see what happens when we lose some of that definition.
Look at the black background. Yeah.
You see, we've lost the background, we've lost the backlight halo effect, we've lost the definition on Lawrence's face. So this is just a simple 2-light setup, really, and it adds quite a lot to the shot. And I'll just turn that back on. Look how much it pops.
And it's that separation, that 3D effect that Aaron's talking about, is that I'm very clearly like defined from my background. I mean, we'd even probably, I mean, if you're doing a documentary, and I mean a full-on, this isn't a one-day package, it's not a, 2-day thing, it's like we're really going to turn something out that's supposed to be watched for a long period of time, which does happen a lot on the news, it's not uncommon. We'll come down and we'll do a 3-light setup. I don't know if we've got a nice little light to put behind
I'd like to do some colour or something, but I don't think we've brought them through.
there's some NDs on top, there's some ND gel and there's a
Oh,
blue.
we've got some gels here,
Yeah,
yeah.
some gels there.
Yeah.
So you can add colour to it, but also you could pop a light,
Ooh, actually.
sort of, oh, you can't see that, there we go.
Joel, can you bring me some clamps from the cupboard, please?
You
Just
to pop a
behind you.
light behind me here. That'll also separate me on this side. But other than that, it looks really nice. And like I said, these are the cameras you guys are going to be using. They can look really, really good. They don't need to look bad. A lot of people can come back with low exposure, low saturation. They've not tried very hard with it. They've not got to know the camera. And because they haven't got to know the camera, they come back with these terrible looking images. Because if they've not bothered to know the camera, they've definitely not bothered to get to know the lights. So you put that red on there, mood completely changes. I mean, that's sinister. But that can create that effect, imagine you're talking to someone who's, I don't know, you're talking to people who've got violent crime pasts, and you sit them somewhere to have them talk about like real dark moments, and you stick some red on it, and they're like, yeah. I mean, and I don't want to be known. Put the voice modulator on. You put a heavy effect on their voice, and they're sitting there saying, yeah, but he was asking for it, I guess. And you're like, did you actually show any, do you actually feel bad about it? It's like, no, I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it. I mean, geez, how would you feel about that one? And you've got this light on here. There's a lot to do with these setups. I mean, Aaron loves this stuff, so you can ask him about it any time, and he will talk to you for a long time about it. He'll turn into me. The one thing I will say, especially with red, digital cameras do not like red. They don't like red anywhere near as much as they like a lot of other colours. Blue is one that they're also not great at. Just remember, digital cameras are designed to pick up green a lot more than they are red or blue. So you'll find that you'll get a lot more tonality in green. Like this green behind me now is quite dark. If you were to do that in a red, it would just turn black. The camera would struggle with it miserably. Be very noisy. Whilst on green, it does a lot better because there are, not to get too complicated, there are twice as many green light receptors on the sensor than there are red and blue. So for every red, there's a green, and for every blue, there's a green. So that's 2 greens for every red and blue. But that's because that's how the human eye sees. The human eye is much more susceptible to green than it is to red and blue. It's just how it works. Also, we actually see luminosity better than we do colour. Lots of interesting things. These are things that you want to try and learn about. If you're interested in this visual medium, learn how we see. Learn what we're not good at seeing. Learn what we're good at seeing. Learn how to put depth into your shots. Learn how to add colour to it. Learn how we interpret colour. What does red mean to people? Are you gonna sit a little kid down and have their award-winning, I don't know, drawing that the Queen saw, and you're gonna stick this red light next to them and just be like, yes, tell me about it. It just look really dark and creepy. You put a blue on there, and suddenly that always conjures up the vibe of police dramas, like police, people talking about it and be like, yes, unsolved cases, mysteries, these sort of things. The lighting helps contextualize because we have expectations. The surroundings helps contextualize because we have expectations. Like, you know, looking at that image, I'm about to talk about something so dark and depressing.
I'd say this blue is for more personal account, whereas the red for maybe of a victim or something, whereas the red is by the victimizer or somebody of criminal intent.
Red is a very aggressive colour. You must remember that, and it's all to do with our interpretations of colours based on, you know, context, how we see them, how they're portrayed in other things. Like, this is not happy looking. It looks like nighttime, cold, vulnerable lighting. You know, you will make someone appear vulnerable by choosing to light them like this. You know, this is quite dramatic. It's very contrasty. You can see that there's a hard amount of light here, and the contrast ratio across my face, it's quite dark this side, especially for a turn like that, very light on this side. You know, and that's, it's very cinematic. You know, it's a filmic thing to do. You know, if you're making a film, that's how you would do it. But that can add drama to your shots. If someone's recounting a very exciting story, you know, to use something a little untactful. You know, if they've got something that's really interesting, light them in a cinematic way as they're telling the story. You know, and they're like, yeah, like 3 squad cars just pulled round and that's where we found them, you know, and we raided the place, you know, 3 guys on foot, they all, you know, we're all armed, all doing this thing. But suddenly you've got this really entertaining story and you're like, oh, it's like a film.
Just going to pop this up a little bit, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Just to hopefully accentuate what I'm going to do, see if it works. There you go.
I mean, if you interviewed, if you put this out on, if someone put something out on TV and I was lit like this, I would be angry because, you know, you almost look as if someone has portrayed you as Satan himself. There is nothing I could say. I could be like, well, you know, I raise dogs to help, you know, I raise service dogs. People would be like, I bet he steals them. So be very careful that you're contextualising people in the right way. Because, oh my word, if you lit a documentary like this, I would watch that documentary. I'd watch that documentary. That documentary would be on Netflix. Also, you can see once we put these gels across, can you bring that in front here just so I can show people the gels? These are the gels that Aaron is using. You can see how much that's doing stuff here. And we just place these in front of the lights, and it colours them. But you will remember, it reduces a lot of light. You know, if I place that there, so effectively, all you're using is my coloured shadow. Oh, I can't get it to stay because it's obviously flexible in the gel. Come on. All it is a coloured shadow. So no wonder it's cutting down the light. It's removing everything from the light. Remember, light is made up of multiple colours, you know, and nothing produces a raw white light. Nothing. It gets close, but nothing does. Sunlight is blue, remember. These tungsten lights are orange. This LED is slightly blue, but as you can see, Aaron was making it cooler and warmer. Because we can choose that, like what we call bicolour LEDs. And you can dial between the two, because really it's a set of orange LEDs and a set of white LEDs. Got some green on there now. Oh, just, you know, that's... It might as well be a 70s horror film. But if you're doing something for Halloween, you know, you're talking about a... You go down to someone and they run their spooky haunted house. You go down and you shoot part of it with this red and green lighting and it's all cinematic. People will be watching because it's interesting. You know, I will be glad when I can get a haircut. But hopefully this has given you a bit of an insight. We've gone a little over what we said.
Yeah, we've gone into other things, but...
I think Aaron just really enjoys it, to be honest. But look at that. All this is 2 lights. You take 2 lights with you. You take the LEDs in packs of 2. Take a set of filters. Sit someone in a dark room. Sit them down and put the light up. When you guys all come back in October to do stuff, come back in September, get ready for October, because the person who can go and get a package that relates to Halloween in some way, and they light it like it's a 70s horror film, and you'll love it. You know, especially if you go like, oh yeah, well, I talk about horror films at this time of year, and yeah, we do a lot of screenings here at local cinema, whatever, and it's going to be really fun. I think people will really like it, and it cuts back to your voiceover of going, time for something spooky, I think. You know, like, people will watch, because you look at it, these cameras can look really, really, really nice, you know, just with this setup here. You know, so if you come back with something that doesn't look good, it's not because the kit's not capable, it's because you need to put some time and effort into it. You really need to,
Sorry, I blinded you a bit there.
I'm used to it now. I'm used to it. So, I think that probably puts us at it.
Yeah.
I'd ask Joel if there are any questions, but I have a sneaking suspicion there are none. Yeah. Remember, guys, you can email Aaron or I any point to ask us questions, and to just sort of figure out how you want to approach stuff. Because there's a lot of opportunities here, and you can do it. Your limit is your imagination. You know, because we're not going to limit you. We always want to boost you. Because this might seem complicated. You might be like, oh, I've not done this very long, but that's fine. You know, you can do it stuff. And look at that depth that's created. You put Aaron in the background there, because obviously it's a bit difficult in green, but you can see that if there was some more objects, there was something hanging or something, you know, there's a lot of depth going on.
I don't want to we digress into film, but there's practicals you could pop in the back, you know, fairy lights, you know, things like that. Little lit pumpkin maybe.
Once again, all of these things are when you get very comfortable with filming, and when you get to a point where I'd say that you feel like you can do, or you're doing something longer form. When you're doing longer form, a lot of this stuff is more available to you, because you'll take a day just to get that interview. You'll take a day to get this interview. You'll take a day to go out and shoot B-roll. You'll take a day to get some inserts. You know, but whilst we're dealing with packages, this light here and that light there, and me sitting here, you can do that. That's not that hard. That's not that difficult at all. You know, it's just one light, two light, camera down, get it together, 15 minutes of talking back and forth, and making sure you're listening for those answers, listening to what you want to hear, and then bringing it back and slicing it all together. Remember, you can do that. It's not that hard. What it is it's a series of small thoughts, small moments that you need to go, camera's down, camera's level, eye line's right, you know, gap above the head is right, focus is right. Right, now we move on to, is the lighting right? Is it a bit dark on this side? Add a light over there. Right, sit down, ask them the questions. What did that sound like? Did it sound all right? Did you mind doing it again? Getting that done. Thinking about it, wondering, asking people, is there anything you want to say? If it's something where they really feel they want to talk to the audience, make sure we do that shot that Aaron was talking about, where I talk to you down the centre of the lens. If it's something where they're just like, you know what, really, I think what I most want to say is, and they talk to you, we'll keep that in that shot you're doing. Take it away, sift through it. You can't use all of it, because you'll have filmed more than a package, you'll have filmed for longer than a package lasts, right? But find that gold in there. Perhaps to call someone over and say, call your editor over and say, look, which of these is the best one? What is the thing that says it? And they'll go, you know what, go for that one. You go, great, done. Pop it all together. Tie it together. Remember your rhythm. Remember, your interview is the backbone. What that person has said is the backbone, and then dress it around it with those cutaways. Remember, your first version should have jump cuts in it, because there's nothing to go over it. Then we start hiding, then we start tidying. You can do that in 6 hours, like 4 hours, 3 hours. But you have to be quick, you have to be on your toes, and you have to be professional. Because these are the professional skills. Anyway, I'm going to end that there. Because Aaron is slowly packing away around me. Remember, that's an important bit too. Packing up quick. I'm going to say to Joel, cut that stream, and we will say, see you later.